I always admire people who have a road to Damascus experience and can have these great revelations, but that's not how it happened for me. It was more of a series of steps, a series of one step or two steps forward, one step back, and in the end, during that period, I came to know who Christ was. I think a lot of small children have that knowledge of God being the creator or out there, so to speak. And that was certainly how I viewed him. I certainly understood that he was all-powerful, that he was interested enough to create us, but I didn't really understand him as being someone that I could converse with. My conception of God up till high school had been one of God as just simply knowledge, but I didn't understand that God was personal in a lot of ways. I personally was very apathetic about my spiritual life. And so throughout high school, I really focused most of my attention on academics and sports, and I took great joy in trying to achieve things at a high level. And so I kind of carried that into college. I had an academic scholarship to go to Oklahoma State University, and I went there for 2 years. And during that time, I think that apathy caught up with me. I kind of let that apathy run wild and did a lot of things that I'm not proud of. I went far enough down that path that I found that of all the amazing things that the world is offering, there was no joy. I think that was probably the hardest thing for me, is that when I realized that all the things that the world offers, academics and degrees and money and power and things, I certainly hadn't achieved all of them, but I had achieved enough of them to see that it was all smoke and mirrors. That left me in a state that, quite frankly, was, I wouldn't say depressed, but it was certainly demoralized in a lot of ways. And so, I'd get up every day and go, well, I could go to class and study more and learn more, but why? What's the purpose? During that time, my grades really suffered. I lost all my scholarships. So it was a difficult time. Several weeks later, it was in the summer, I was working. But I ran into John. He said he was going to computer science school at OBU, Oklahoma Baptist University. And he invited me to come and check out the campus. And so I ended up going to school there. And that 2-year period was really one of a lot of change spiritually. And being a Catholic, I knew it would be an environment that was somewhat hostile to my faith. When you meet somebody there, they ask you 3 questions. The first is, what's your name? Second is, where are you from? And the third is, what church do you go to? And so very quickly it became evident that they wanted to talk about their faith. They wanted to talk about Christ in their life. And I didn't know what to say about mine. That 2-year period really kind of set off a chain of events that really forced me to figure that problem out. And I'd say that that's one of the things that many people today don't go through, is a really deep dive, so to speak, of what they believe and why. One of the things that those provocations or challenges that people would get into at OBU was, it forced me to kind of go back to the early church fathers, reading Augustine and Tertullian and Origen and Ignatius and all of these fathers of the church who wrote very eloquently about the person of Christ as he existed in the church, and found that there was both great struggle in what they wrote. Many of them were persecuted, and yet, like St. Paul, there was great joy in what they had to say. I read a text that was really a synopsis of what St. Augustine said about knowledge, and my conception of God up till high school had been one of God is just simply knowledge. So I found it very interesting, and the quote was something that I memorized because I found it so interesting, and it says, "Knowledge for its own sake has little value. However, the true significance of knowledge lies in its use as a tool for the comprehension of God's will." And so to me, I think that signaled to me that knowledge for its own end was pointless. One of the things that I appreciate the most about our Catholic faith is the fact that we live in not just an ethereal, cognitive-only faith, but it's lived. We touch it, we breathe it, we smell it. It's a faith that's not just in the mind, but it is lived out, and as Catholics we would say that it's lived sacramentally, that baptism and the Eucharist and marriage and all the sacraments, they are not simply signs of things, but they affect the reality of things that exist here and in heaven. And so coming to a better understanding of those concepts and then seeing them lived out in people really was transformative for me. That was all part of that kind of 2-year period where I really started to live my life for Christ because I knew Him. And one of the things I started to do as part of that process is to read the scriptures more. And I found probably my favorite scripture, which is Jeremiah 9:24. And it says that, "Let not the rich man glory in his riches. Let not the wise man glory in his wisdom. Let not the mighty man glory in his might. But if you glory in this, that you understand and know me." I think that was the one thing that I was missing, was Christ. And knowing Him truly did bring me to that joy that I had been seeking my whole life. Having that joy of knowing who He is and knowing that my worth doesn't come from the things that I do or the things that I know is actually very liberating. It is something that I can take joy in, that no matter what's happening, good, bad, indifferent, boring, exciting, any of the emotions that you can have in life, that there is that bedrock of the person of Christ who is leading me and guiding me. I can't imagine my life lived any other way. My name is Peter Samwell, and I am Catholic.